are stuck on the outside of the shoulder blade, and you can see all the periosteum, these bone connectives, stuck that literally adhere the muscle to the backside of the shoulder blade. All right, that's this right here. And if I flip it over, that's the skin. So we'll come back to that in a minute. We've also got a striploin, and this one is not in great shape, but this is the muscle that runs right along the back of the animal, like they do two halves like a saddle, and the section of the lumbar section of the animal, from the rib to the pelvis. If you want to know which is which, look how clean and even and smooth the muscle face is here, because the other side of this cut, when they cut in, is the ribeye area. If you look at this end, this is the pelvic end, right? You see lots of little inclusions of fat and silver skin, and there's even two different muscles that this is made up of, and there's a seam in there that you can describe. If you push on this muscle, you can tell that it ends about right there. There's a cap of fat over this, and there's a significant amount of connective tissue that runs along the spine here, because the spinal processes stand up here, right, like that. All the bumps along your spine are there. In the slaughtering process, they're split down their midline. There are bones that project out from the spine, like that, underneath these muscles, and then under that would be the tenderloin, right? Try to reanimate it, recombine it. So that's the shoulder, this is the arm, this is the center section of the animal. To illustrate the rib, what we bought is a veal rack, right? The primals are called by different names, but what we're talking about is baby cow. This is the rib section. It's from the chuck on one end and the loin on the other end, right? It's an intermediary piece. So chuck up here, loin in the middle, or rack in the middle, loin down closer to the hip, and then round would be the legs down towards the animal. So we can look at this piece and see that the bones of the spine have been removed, but there's some little vestigial pieces, right? That's a piece of feather bone that's sort of still clinging on. These are all the rib bones, and they're cut just below the little lump of cartilage that attaches them to the actual vertebrae. So on the animal, they would sit like this, and the bones on the underneath would form the rib cage. There would be a mirror image of them over here, and this long muscle here continues on into that muscle and then attaches to the pelvis. It goes up through the chuck and attaches to the head of the animal. And it's this muscle complex is called the longissimus. It's the longest muscle on the body. Right? Well, no, because this is farther up the animal. Okay. Right? So if you're looking at the eye of the muscle, you can tell that this muscle becomes much more segmented, and it has lots more sort of sections to it the closer you get to the shoulder of the animal. But down where it would abut the loin like this, right? It's nice, smooth, circular eye muscle. So if I were eating a lamb chop, I would rather have that because there's more tasty connective tissue and fat included in there. Typically what we do is we French these, which is to remove the meat from the bones. And because these are sort of soft meat, tasteless animals, they're easy to do. I've also got a bit of tail of the animal, and regardless of whether it's a cow or an oxen, it's called oxtail, and it's loaded with sinew and connective tissue and smaller bits of bone, and all of that cooks down in sort of gelatinous goodness. So it makes beautiful soups and stews. You have to remove the bones once it's cooked, but the meat is like jelly. It's so delicious. Here we have further down, see where the saw cuts through the rib were here? Continuing down the animal and around the rib cage, you get short ribs, right? So that thin section right along here of the rib cage, you get a section of the long rib and the muscles that overlie it. But look how much fat is in it, right? And all that braises into real gooey, rich, delicious stuff. The bone connectives that surround these require a bit more cooking than all the other collagen tissues. So if you cook them with the bone in, they require a bit more sort of sustained cooking to get them really tender where the bone's sort of falling out. We've also got some skirt steak, and this is called inside skirt. There's two muscles that look almost identical, one of which is from the abdominal wall. It's called outside skirt, But this is inside skirt, and it's actually the diaphragm of the animal. So it wraps around the perimeter of the rib cage like this, and there's the thin sort of drumhead skin of membrane, and this muscle makes it contract and pull in air in and out of the body. But the muscles of the diaphragm are what we use for skirt steak, or what we call skirt steak. And they're great for fajitas. Once you trim up...
And flank, how are those terms related or not?
Flank is generally the abdominal wall muscles of the loin, and skirt steak is part of that, certainly. But inside skirt is actually part of the rib, where outside skirt is part of the round, as part of the loin. Doesn't really matter if you call on your order skirt steak. You get two choices, you want inside or outside. Just inside is better in general. It's leaner and more tender. I'm sorry, it's fattier and more tender than the outside skirt. And this are the sweetbreads. These happen to be veal sweetbreads, and this is the larger of the two glands. This is the thalamus gland connected to this, or thymus gland connected to the down near the heart. And it's quite large. This is part of the sort of endocrine system. It makes lots of different hormones for the animal. There's a fair amount of membrane on it, and typically what you do is you blanch it, and then you blanch it in sort of a little torchon or cheesecloth. Rinse that out in water for me. So you wrap it up really tightly, and then you blanch it really gently in beef stock, and then you put it under a weight and press